Sometimes I think we find the uncool in the most shocking places of all, just like Jesus. Sometimes it's when we're not looking for it that it hits us like a frying pan between the eyes. I remember 6 or 7 years ago, the day after Hurricane Katrina, I was in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I was with a partner, and we were working in a disaster relief effort, and we were some of the first people to really get there from churches as first responders. And so civilization stopped at Mobile, Alabama. And so we set up shop there in a church, and we slept on the floor, and we would make day trips into Biloxi, which was about a 1-hour drive. And within a few minutes of the west side of Mobile, all cell phones died. There was no electricity, no gasoline, no water, no social services whatsoever. There was no landlines, no nothing. It was like being in the Stone Ages. And so the first day we got there, it was like being in Beirut, Lebanon. There were helicopters flying overhead. There were lots of screaming and hollering. Everything was just blown apart. So we went from church to church along the coast, right in front of the Gulf of Mexico, feet from the shoreline, looking for a place where we could work, where we could make a base camp out of. And every church was destroyed except one, and it was First Presbyterian Church. So being Presbyterians, we thought that was a sign from God, so we decided to set up shop there and look no further. So we set up shop at First Presbyterian Church, and one morning when we were still in Mobile getting ready to go into Biloxi for the day, the coolest uncool thing happened. This mom from the church brought all the middle school youth girls into the fellowship hall. And I guess they must have had a lot of middle school girls in that church, because there were like 20 of them. And they all looked almost exactly the same. They had on the same kind of clothing. They all looked like they were ready for a day at the beach. They had on flip-flops and nylon shorts, and their nails were painted, and their hair was done up, and they had on tank tops, and their makeup was perfect. And you know, they all had their braces and everything, and it was so cute. And mom was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they were helping, and I was looking at them as I strapped on my muddy boots and my jeans and everything else, and I thought, wow, this is going to be something to see. So we all went down to Biloxi to First Presbyterian Church, and she gave each one of them a box with several bags of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a bottle of water, and something religious in it. And so she broke them up into teams of 2 or 3, and they went out scouring the neighborhoods of houses that are completely wrecked. And she said, don't come back until you give out all your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Well, about 2 hours later, they came back, and they weren't cute anymore, at least not in the traditional sense of cute. They were dirty, and they had this look on their face of shock. They didn't laugh, and they weren't smiling, and they weren't telling jokes. They were really quiet. And then the mom could tell they're getting really upset. So she said, you know what? There's a homeless shelter right down the street. Let's pick up all the nasty pew Bibles out of we had gutted the inside of this church because there was 2 feet of sludge on the floor, and it stunk like a garbage can. And so we threw all that right out the front door. And so they picked through all of this sludge waste, green goopy stuff to get the Bibles out, as many as they could carry, and they put them in the back of a minivan, and they drove them down the street to the homeless shelter. And about an hour later they came back, and their makeup was smeared. They had been crying, and they said, you're not going to believe this. Those people down there asked us to go back and get more Bibles and bring it to them, and they wanted to know if we had anything for them to sleep on, because they're sleeping on bare concrete. And so can we have the pew cushions from the seats and take it down there to them? I know it stinks, but it's better than concrete. And so they packed all that stuff up and drove it down the street. And then they came back one more time, and they were a mess. Cool? Nope. But covered in mud and armed with peanut butter and jelly, in the name of Jesus, the Word became flesh in Biloxi, Mississippi. And I believe that Jesus looked down from heaven and simply said, cool.